Britain has, until recently, an unusual relationship with the concept of compulsory identity cards. So when in history have Brits been told to show me your papers? Well, unlike many European nations where they are a fixture of daily life, Britain has only introduced them in moments of national crisis. This is largely due to the traditional concept of English law, which, unlike the Napoleon-influenced continent, has afforded the liberty to do what thou wilt, unless expressly prohibited in law. Continental systems tend to function by having things proscribed unless permitted directly by the state. Gross generalisation though that may be, it's pretty close to how it actually is. So the history of ID cards in the UK is therefore bound up with war, security and state control, rather than ordinary peacetime administration. And so it came to pass that the first major instance came during the First World War. Everything started going wrong for Britain during the First World War. So in 1915 the National Registration Act was passed, requiring everyone aged between 15 and 65 to register with the authorities. And this was not a casual exercise in bureaucracy. Britain was fighting a war of unprecedented scale, and the government needed to know who was available for military service and who was essential to the workforce at home. Citizens were issued identity cards which had to be produced on demand. The system lasted until 1919, when it was abolished once hostilities had ended. Compulsory ID cards returned with the outbreak of World War II in 1939. Under the National Registration Act of that year, every person, including children, was required to carry an identity card at all times. These cards recorded basic details such as name, address and date of birth, and became integral to the running of wartime Britain. They were used to organise conscription, administer rationing, and help identify civilians during air raids or evacuations. Even after victory in 1945, the cards were retained, partly because of continued rationing and other state controls in the virtually bankrupt nation. However, in peacetime the cards rapidly became unpopular. Police began using them for routine checks unrelated to wartime needs, fueling public resentment. In 1952, Prime Minister Winston Churchill's government finally abolished the system, reflecting a widespread belief that compulsory identification was incompatible with British traditions of liberty. And rationing had finally ended. The idea of ID cards resurfaced decades later. In the wake of various attacks, Tony Blair's Labour government introduced the Identity Cards Act 2006, proposing modern biometric ID cards linked to a national database. The scheme was controversial from the outset, criticised for its cost, intrusiveness and potential threat to civil liberties. When the Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition took office in 2010, the legislation was repealed and the database destroyed. Today, Britain remains one of the few countries in Europe without a compulsory national ID card. The historical episodes of enforcement show that in Britain, identity cards have been tolerated only in wartime emergencies. In peacetime, the public has consistently rejected them as an unnecessary intrusion by the state. Recently, however, the Labour government of Keir Starmer is attempting to revive compulsory ID cards, but is facing mounting opposition to plans already. Whether they'll get the revived measures off the ground remains to be seen. What do you think about compulsory identity cards? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and most importantly subscribe. And you can also support the channel on Subscribestar via the link in the description, or via YouTube Super Thanks. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.